Hello? Rescue hooks to rescue, Mayday! Get ahead, West. Fast, Mayday, what's your location? Get the hell out of here, hurry up! We need radio silence, I need water in that 2.5 inch line. 48 inch water in a 2.5 inch line. Mayday, to the rope, to the rope. 35 in the rear, 35 in the rear.
Welcome to the Emergency Traffic Podcast. Hello and welcome to the Emergency Traffic Podcast, where we talk about firefighter line of duty deaths to learn from these tragic events and potentially prevent them from happening in the future. I'm Paul, your host, and today I'm joined by my co-hosts, my cousin Denis, a retired fire chief from Nova Scotia. Hello, Denis. How are you?
Hi, Paul and Doug. I'm good, I think. Just doing summer stuff, right? Riding my motorcycle as much as I can. We were out for 11-hour jolt last Sunday, so that was good.
11 hours. Nice.
Yeah, well, you know, you go till the sun sets, right? That's how that works.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
So we only stopped at 2 Tim Hortons. So.
Can't you find a better coffee shop than Tim Hortons? Oh, we're going to get some hate mail on that one.
Oh, I like Tim's.
Oh, okay. And Doug, a firefighter, current firefighter on the job in a major metropolitan city in Western Canada. How are you, Doug?
Good. Same answer as always. Busy with kids, but I got 2 in a row podcasts here, so I'm going. Last time I said I was a guest host more than a co-host. Now I'm getting back into co-host mode. But
yeah, quit hitting your mic when you're talking, though. You gotta put your hands down. You're not French. You shouldn't be moving your heads around.
I'm married to an Italian.
That's what it is. Yeah. Okay. You make how many podcasts do you have to do in a row to get a shirt? That's the question.
I like tapping the mic and stuff to give you work to do when you're editing.
Thank you. Yeah, I much appreciate it. I love it. Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, things are good. Well, summer's good. It's all good.
Yeah. Good. Yeah. Excellent. And I'm up here at Lakeland College, actually, in Vermilion, Alberta, at the fire school. I'm helping to, as a casual instructor, I'm helping to teach a pump course this week. So I'm in my RV, my trailer at the local campground, which is right in town. And we are here podcasting. So we'll see how it goes with my streaming on my phone, because I'm hotspotting to my phone. Okay, before we get into this week's episode, which is an interesting one, a couple of current events that I had noted in the document here was the nightclub fire in Thailand, right? That killed, I think it was 28 people. A very similar contributing factor to the recent nightclub fire in Switzerland last year, and of course the Station nightclub fire in Rhode Island. So these terrible nightclub fires where overcrowding is a factor, the acoustic insulation is potentially a factor, and the flammability of same, and obscurity of exits or lack of exits, all these kind of factors that are killing people in nightclubs. Really, it's a code and enforcement problem, in my opinion, but tragic anyway. And we need to somehow learn from these lessons around the world, right, Denis?
Yeah, one of the issues there, I think, is you put your finger on it. It's not that Thailand doesn't have proper fire codes. Apparently they do. It's an issue of people who own these facilities following the requirements and enforcement, which points the finger at the authority having jurisdiction strongly, in my opinion. And I know when I was in Ontario, we had a fire marshal who came in while I was there, and he was a lawyer actually by trade, and a former fire chief. And when he came in to become the fire marshal, he told all the fire departments, the fire chiefs and fire prevention officers, said if somebody dies in your jurisdiction and you've failed to exercise the authority that you have under the fire code, I will be the guy sitting on the other side telling them that you shouldn't have shirked your duty. You should have done your job. And said, so start doing your job. It says, you're not here to be nice. You're here to make fire safety work. And that was a huge eye-opener for a lot of people who felt that the total approach to fire safety was being friendly and nice. And, good people would do what they need to do. The reality is a lot of people only think with their wallet. So you need to make it painful for them to get out and do the things they're supposed to do.
Yeah, it's
And
tragic.
that changed everything. Really changed my outlook on things too.
Yeah, that's tragic. The one in Switzerland was definitely code enforcement, from what I've learned about it, and the one in obviously Rhode Island was code enforcement as well. So we need to get stricter with these things, or else people will continue to die.
Yeah, there's no excuse for those things. And if you're a firefighter and you go into these establishments, you may be off duty, you may be in there for a medical call. You have a duty, in my opinion, to report it, and you have a duty to make sure that the appropriate authorities take action, or at least know about something and should take action. To me, it's the same as if you see anything that's going on with a child, you're required by law to report it.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a firefighter and you see a fire violation, you should be obligated through your professional standards to report that also. Even if you're traveling, it's not about, I don't want to rock the boat bullshit. People could die because of that.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you how many hotels I go in where they have wooden wedges holding the fire separation
I take
doors
the wedges
open.
with me. Yeah,
I take them every
wedges.
time.
Yeah.
And I had somebody ask me, he says, "What are you doing that for?" I says, "I'm collecting evidence."
Yeah, I need to do that more. I've been to a few places where I get like, oh man. And anyway, yeah, exactly. Another big event that happened last week here in North America was George Stiekiel, who was the co-founder of Spartan Motors, died on July 4th at the age of 96. And George was a pillar in my upbringing. I met with him many times in my fire service career while I was working for apparatus builders, and he was such an interesting man. He was an immigrant from Poland, born in 1929, survivor of World War II. George emigrated to the States in the 50s, settling in Michigan. He built a career as an automotive engineer over 19 years at Chrysler, rising to assistant chief engineer of Dodge Heavy Trucks before moving to Diamond Rio Trucks in 73. After Diamond Rio filed for bankruptcy, George, alongside his fellow engineers Bill Foster, who I've also met and spent lots of time with, Jerry Geary, and John Knox, founded Spartan Motors in 1975. They designed the specialty fire truck chassis. George's son John recalls that suppliers leaned on the new company, or lent company, the new company, New Parts, trusted its leadership and said, "When you sell the first one, pay us." In 1976, FMC became the first company to purchase Spartan's specialized fire truck chassis. FMC was building fire trucks at the time. During George's tenure at Spartan Motors, the company went public in 84, launched the first fire truck training conference in 94, branched into manufacturing complete fire apparatus solutions by acquiring Laverne Fire Trucks and Quality Manufacturing. This venture lives on as Spartan Emergency Response. George was an extraordinary visionary whose leadership helped shape Spartan brands. I'm reading from the article from Fire Engineering, I think it was. He really did shape the modern fire apparatus industry, according to Mike Verig, president of the Terex Specialty Vehicle segment. His legacy will endure for generations to come. Throughout his time at Spartan, he led with the ethic of valuing each and every employee in the company. He was really a nice guy. It didn't matter that he was a multimillionaire, president of the company, all this kind of stuff. He would love to sit down with you and have breakfast and talk fire trucks. And he always had innovative ideas. He was the guy to bring out new crazy chassis, some of them that were not so successful, like the GT1 or the little ambulance chassis he did, and a few little rear mounts. But I mean, as far as the Spartan Gladiator, the Spartan Metro Star, they are the main product in most of North America are those chassis. There was other ones. There was the Diamond. There was the Charger. There was all kinds of them. He's always trying to reinvent it to try to capture the market. And really, he wanted the company to be successful, but it was the success of the equipment, the design, so that it worked well for firefighters. I know Doug, my friend here, he would fight me to the death to get a custom chassis over a commercial chassis. And it's because of guys like George Stiekiel that you like the custom chassis so much, because it's a nice truck for firefighting. Right, Doug?
Yeah, that's right. And it's built for firefighting, not for delivering milk.
Aha. Nice. I still lean towards the commercials, but
yeah, but you don't ride on them, Chief.
There you go. That's the problem. Yeah, too much.
But you can use it for picking up milk, Doug.
I like it. Yeah.
Always ready. Cold Spring.
Okay, into the episode. Okay, first of all, a little disclaimer here. This podcast is a commentary. It's based on the information that was available at the time of the recording and the experience of the presenters. That's us host guys. This is done to the best of our ability, and listeners should be cautioned that you may not agree with us. It's a podcast. That's why we do it. The information for this episode was taken from the NIOSH Firefighter Fatality and Prevention Program Report F2011-18. And so we derive the information from there. We simply take that report, condense it, and then we review it with you and talk about the recommendations. Okay, now let's see. This event occurred on July 28th of 2011. A 37-year-old career captain of the Asheville Fire Department in North Carolina, Captain Jeffrey Bowen of Rescue 3, died, and 9 other firefighters were injured while searching for the seat of a fire in a 6-story medical building. This is like a doctor's office establishment near a hospital, and they had a fire in it. It's kind of a rare, kind of a unique call. You don't get these very often, and it's amazing that, it's tragically killed 1 and injured 9 others. So very interesting call.
The fire department is a career fire department that has 12 stations with 234 uniformed members who serve a population of approximately 83,000 residents, and a daytime population that balloons to 125,000 to 150,000 people within an area about 60 square miles or 155 square kilometers, including contracted areas outside the city limits. The fire department responds to approximately 14 to 15,000 emergency calls annually. Specialty units consist of the hazardous materials mitigation, or hazmat, swiftwater rescue, high angle rescue, dive rescue, confined space rescue. All department members work 24-hour duty shifts, which is 24 on, 24 off, 24 on, 48 off, 24 on, 96 off. The fire department operates 17 companies consisting of 11 engine companies, which includes 1 squad and 1 quint, 4 trucks, 1 rescue, and 1 tender. The fire department has written policies and procedures which are available to all department members within their stations. Policies and procedures on incident command system, personnel accountability systems, high-rise operations, and truck company operations were in place.
That's a lot of calls for the size of the department.
I don't know anything about Asheville, busy. But I would assume they're like the main metropolis in the area if their daytime population balloons that much.
Yeah, but even so, that's still a lot of calls for the size of the department. So they must run medicals, right?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Well, I don't think they do like ambulance, but they probably do medical calls, which most fire departments do.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know of any full-time career departments in North America that don't do medical calls.
Yeah, be very few.
Talk a little bit about the training and experience of the department, and particularly of the firefighter who died in this incident. So the state of North Carolina has specific requirements and recommendations to become either a volunteer or a career firefighter. First, you must be 18 years old with a high school diploma or GED, and have a Class C or better North Carolina driver's license. The state recommends a thorough physical exam be conducted by a qualified medical practitioner, according to the current edition of National Fire Protection Association Standard 1582, which is the standard for medical requirements for fire service personnel. Second, all firefighters must complete training equivalent to NFPA 1001, which is the Firefighter Professional Qualification Standards, at the level of Firefighter 1 and Firefighter 2. Third, a North Carolina Level 1 firefighter must be certified to hazmat awareness and hazmat operations. There's something in there that I think a lot of departments miss. The physical exam conducted by a qualified medical practitioner, that is not a standard GP. That has to be somebody who understands the demands on a firefighter itself. And I found in my career, looking for that person who could do these physicals for firefighters was not as easy as you think. A lot of ordinary physicians would just look at their patients and say, yeah, you're good, when in fact they might not be. Anyway, training and experience of Captain Jeffrey Bowen. He had his Firefighter 1 and Firefighter 2, as we mentioned he needed. He had a rapid intervention team training, a RIT training they call it. He had his hazmat awareness and operations. He had a hazmat hazardous waste operations and emergency response. He had emergency response to terrorism basic concepts. He had some confined space training. He had technical rescue training, which included trench rescue, high angle rescue, swift water rescue, and various admin and technical courses. He was a captain, right? So we would have had administrative responsibilities. The initial incident commander, which was the captain of Engine 2, he had his Firefighter 1 and Firefighter 2. He had his National Incident Management System certification. I'm not sure what level, doesn't say. He had a hazmat operations level, so he would have had awareness also. He had a Fireground Company operations course. He had vertical ventilation and various administrative and technical courses also. And the eventual IC, which was a division chief, DC1, you'll hear him come up. He was not a deputy chief, a division chief. He had his Firefighter 1, Firefighter 2, Fire Inspector 1, Hazardous Materials Training, National Incident Management System certification, Command Officer Training. He had some high angle rescue, and he had various other admin and technical courses. So these would be, departmental courses. So the fire department has a training classroom at headquarters and training staff, which are led by the chief of training. The training division is responsible for all aspects of training and education for the department, including recruit training, in-service training for firefighters and officers, and professional standards testing and certifications. The division manages and facilitates much of the training with 3 training specialists who are assigned to each shift. It's a 3-platoon system. So there's 1 per shift. The shift training officers also serve as the incident safety officers. So they turn out as ISOs to calls.
Yeah, interesting. So let's see. The structure involved in this building or this fire was approximately 123,000 almost square foot, which is 11,500 square meters. It was a 6-story commercial structure which contained numerous medical offices, was built in 1982. The commercial structure consisted of 5 upper floors, a ground floor, and a basement. The exterior construction was cast concrete panels reinforced by steel columns and I-beams, and a large glass window panels on every floor. So I had windows wrapped around every floor along with these concrete panels. And we'll put some pictures on our social media when we broadcast the episode. The roof was flat and constructed of corrugated steel decking, finished with a rubber membrane, asphalt, and approximately an inch of layer of gravel on top. A parapet wall was approximately 3 feet high and surrounded the perimeter of the roof. A steel and concrete mechanical room, which housed utilities for the structure, was located in the center of the roof.
I'd just like to clarify a couple things. This incident happened at 445 Biltmore Avenue. That's the address. However, that wasn't the side A of the building. So the side A is on the driveway into the parkade and the main entrance. So that might become confusing. So the address on Biltmore Avenue is actually the Charlie side of the incident. And it says it's a 6-story building, but the ground level floor was actually a walkout on only 2 sides and was below ground level on other 2 sides or hidden by extensions on the building. So that's a little confusing. So the top floor was actually designated the 5th floor. So even though it says it's a 6th, so you could get confused when you're going through here. So just to be clear, the top floor is the 5th floor, and it's like Europe, right? The ground floor had no number. The first floor was the first floor above the ground floor.
I was confused when you sent me the link for the building and looking at the pictures and stuff, and I'm going, okay, where's the Alpha side here? I don't really understand. And you pointed out some burn marks or something on the Alpha Bravo corner, and I'm going, well, that's the other corner. I thought that was the Charlie Delta. So, yeah, it is confusing.
Yeah. Well, there is no entrance on the addressed side of the building. So, yeah, anyway.
So, the interior construction was drywall over metal studs, very typical for a commercial building, comprising numerous interior rooms and long hallways, typical doctor's office. The floors were poured concrete that were covered primarily with carpeting. Some areas were tiled. The ceilings were suspended acoustical tile supported by a metal grid. A void space approximately 3 feet high was located between the drop ceiling and the steel decking of the floor above. So steel decking and then concrete above it. Void spaces contain heating and cooling, ductwork, and other utilities. The building is assessed at the ground level by 2 main areas. A set of glass doors near the center of the structure on the Bravo side, north, and the Alpha side. 2 steel personnel doors were also on site alpha, one each near each end of the structure. On site alpha of the structure, an enclosed skywalk connected floors 1 through 4 to a multi-level parking garage. The structure had 2 internal stairwells, north and south, with an access to the roof and a set of internal elevators. The structure was equipped with an automatic fire alarm. Note here, though, that the automatic fire alarm had false alarmed 5 times within the previous 30 days, so there were some issues with the fire alarm. The structure only had a single room on the second floor that was sprinklered and contained a hyperbaric chamber. The lack of sprinklers throughout the building significantly increased the health and safety exposure and risk to the firefighters. The structure was equipped with a wet standpipe system, which was supplied by an underground municipal water main on the east side of the structure. The standpipe went up to the top floor in both north and south stairwells. The fire department connections, FTC, fed into the basement to the standpipe system, which served as supplemental water supply. The FTC was designed to provide water to the standpipe system if the pressure in the FTC was greater than the pressure in the municipal water supply. A 2.5-inch, 65mm fire department hose line connection with a shutoff valve was supplied by the standpipe at each floor landing, pretty typical for these type of buildings, multi-story buildings with standpipes, and housed them in a metal cabinet. Each cabinet also contained 100 feet of 1.5-inch occupant or in-house fire hose, which was for use by trained building occupants. The standpipe system included several screw and yoke valves, 2 gated shutoff valves, and a backflow preventer. All the valves were verified to be open at the time of the post-fire incident investigation. Several firefighters stated and recorded radio traffic indicated that there was no water or water pressure in the standpipe system. Also, some firefighters observed dirty black substance mixed with water at the standpipe fire department hose line connection, which they believe may have clogged the water supply on the different floors. During the incident, the hose line that was deployed in the north stairwell was prematurely charged, causing numerous kinks in the hose line and possibly by a partially open valve, which greatly inhibited the water flow. There's more notes here. The ATF inspected, flow tested, and pressure tested and concluded that the standpipe was fully operational and functional as it was designed. In addition, the fire department, with NIOSH investigators observing, recreated the standpipe connection process and concluded that when the hose line was properly deployed, there was enough water pressure to put water on the fire. Another note here is the fire stairwell in the building had significant volume of smoke from the 5th floor down to the lobby due to air entrainment from a phenomenon known as reverse stack effect. Reverse stack effect results from a temperature difference between the warm air outside and cooler inside air in the building from the air conditioning. This creates a buoyancy driven downward flow of air and smoke from the top to the bottom of a tall building. Firefighters described the smoke in the stairwells as being very dense, stating that they were forced to breathe supplied air prior to arriving on the fire floor. Have you experienced that, either of you guys?
I never have, no.
No.
No, you'd have to have very warm, humid outside conditions and well air conditioned building inside,
Well,
right? So
yeah, North Carolina.
I've experienced it in my car, and you will too if your car is cooler than the outside air and humidity.
Yeah.
And I experienced that this morning when I pulled out of my garage and my windows and everything steamed up immediately and stayed steamed up. It's kind of a similar type thing. I would like to point out one thing, though, is the fire department connection on the street was actually on the Charlie side of the building, and the incident command was on the Alpha side of the building. So issues that they were having with the fire department connection were not immediately observable to the incident commander. So, sometimes, you'd have to depend on radio communications back and forth, say, hey, we're having problems with the standpipe or whatever the case may be. Sometimes if that's happening within sight of the incident commander can get a sense that things are not going well, right? See that, and it can have an impact. And so it's actually interesting in this building that the fire department connection was put where there actually is no access to the building.
Yeah, that is interesting.
But I think the thinking there was if it had been put down the driveway near the parkade and the entryway, you couldn't get to it. It was a narrow driveway of considerable length going down in there. You'd park one pumper down there on the FTC if you could get it in at all. And so, you'd be choked up with civilian cars and people evacuating and everything else. So it might have been smart to put it on the other side, but everything's a double-edged sword, right?
Yeah, for sure. Fire department personnel and equipment that were involved. So the fire department dispatched to the automatic alarm 2 engines, 1 truck, and a squad. Upon notification of a working fire, an additional engine, rescue company, division chief, battalion chief, safety officer, and fire marshal were dispatched. There's a note here that engine 2 requested a second alarm, but due to multiple radio transmissions on the dispatch channel, this was missed by the communications center. The communications center never acknowledged the request and only dispatched the working fire units. Another alarm was not dispatched for 25 minutes after the call. The third alarm requested was actually the second alarm dispatch. So they actually got a third alarm before their second alarm assignment. So that was a mistake on the radio channel. They dispatched engine 1 and they only had 3 staffing on most of the trucks. Engine 1 had a captain, engineer, and a firefighter. Engine 2 had a captain, and a relief engineer and a firefighter. We also had on the ladder an acting captain and a relief driver. And squad 1 had a captain, an engineer, and a firefighter. The safety officer, the battalion chief. Engine 6 actually was the only engine that was staffed properly with a captain, engineer, and 2 firefighters. Rescue 3, which was the captain, the victim, an engineer, and a firefighter, and another firefighter who was injured, arrived in his own personal vehicle at the fire. And then there was another division chief. In total, they had 22 firefighters and 2 chief officers and an incident safety officer on the initial response for the call. We've seen this before.
Pretty light.
Pretty skinny for a commercial 6-story structure with a working fire. And we've seen this before, where acting or relief engine operators or acting officers have struggled at complex calls. And this is not the first time. We had the same thing happen in Charleston 9, right? The pump operator couldn't get the pump in gear because it was a difficult pump and he wasn't used to it.
Yeah.
I can understand that alarm response, though, being that, like, you probably get a lot of, like, quote unquote structure fire calls in some of these buildings because someone, I smell smoke, and it's not. So you don't dump the whole city. I mean, your city only had 11 engines to start with. So, I mean, you send 2 engines and a truck, not the worst. They did ask for the second alarm, didn't get it, which that's a failure of a few people not realizing. I mean, if dispatch didn't hear it, other people didn't hear it. The chief, whoever, didn't hear it also. And I guess engine 2 should have confirmed it was coming. But it also makes me question, like, what about the other 3 engines and the ladder and the chief? How come none of them thought of send a second alarm?
Yeah, where's that second alarm? You should hear them getting dispatched, right?
Well, but
called
like they might not have heard engine 2 ask for it, just like dispatch didn't. But why didn't they think on their own of asking for it is what I don't understand.
Yeah.
Right?
Captain gets out of the cab. He's on his handy-talkie. He says he calls it in. Might not have been heard. Yeah, you look at how this building is structured. He'd be surrounded on 3 sides by buildings, right? So he may or may not have got out.
Radio.
And the entrance to the building is actually underneath the walkway overhead. So even the sky wasn't open to him if he was in the wrong place.
This does make me think, you brought it to my attention, Doug, when you mentioned that about the commercial alarms and stuff like that. Thinking of, I believe, Edinburgh and London and many municipalities in the UK, where they're actually not responding to commercial alarms during business hours. They will not respond. And they've got a big education program all across the UK saying, if you're in a commercial building and you have a fire during business hours, you need to phone 911 or whatever the emergency number is over there, because they do not respond to monitored alarms during business hours because they get so many. They actually stopped responding and said, call us because we're not going to come on our own. So, yeah, you can see how that affects what you respond with.
Yeah, but a couple of things. I mean, this is a non-sprinklered building, which they must know. This is on a medical campus. So, and the building's of a certain size. So you might want to consider all of those things being put in the CAD system and consideration being given to whether, you would up the response to this particular location or not. And this fire actually occurred in the building management offices. So Was there nobody with building management who could confirm that there was a fire and call it into 911 and say, yes, we have a fire? So we don't know that because it's not in the report.
I would question or wonder if this probably already was an upgraded response for an automatic alarm. Like a house fire, lots of places gets 1 or 2 engines for an automatic alarm. So being this is a commercial office building, it got like, quote, like kind of a full first alarm response on just an automatic alarm.
For a standard structure fire, yes.
Yeah.
But if you go into the recommendations for the number of firefighters that should respond to this type of occupancy,
we'll get there.
22 firefighters ain't it.
The weather on this day in July in 2011, I think it was clear with an approximate temperature of 87 degrees Fahrenheit, 30 Celsius. Relative humidity was 46%, and the wind was variable at 4 to 6 miles per hour or 6 to 9 kilometers per hour. The weather may have had an impact on the incident, it comments. Even though the wind isn't that much, it does comment here that the weather may have had an impact.
I was curious at the wind. Yeah, I was curious at the wind direction, Paul, because we've had many discussions here before. So I went and looked at the direction that was on that day, and it was impacting on the Charlie side of the building, and the fire was on the Alpha Bravo corner. So
probably not really impacting.
Just probably more of
the temperature, because it was 30 Celsius. The air conditioning is going rock hard. And then you've got that reverse stack effect happening because you got all that cool air in the building.
Yeah.
Doug loves to do the investigation part, so I thought we'd let him do that.
Sure.
Being the hands-on guy.
On July 28th, 2011, at 12:28 hours, like we said, dispatch sent engine 1, engine 2, truck 1, squad 1. We should clarify the squad here is like a rescue pumper or a squad in the North American Fire Service could mean almost anything. So here it's a
and does.
Yeah, I mean it's
it could
it's
be
the word I joke
about.
For all we know. It could be an ambulance, it could be a pickup truck, it could be a heavy rescue, so here in Asheville it's a pumper. I'm assuming has some rescue capability. That's why it's not called an engine. Anyways, to an automatic fire alarm at a multi-story medical building. Upon arrival, 1 minute later, the Engine 2 captain reported a working fire with heavy smoke and fire showing on the top floor, rear of the structure, and requested a second alarm. DC 4, that's Division Chief 4, Battalion Chief 1, Engine 6, Rescue 3, the safety officer, and the fire marshal were dispatched to fill the working fire dispatch. But a second alarm was not dispatched. It was missed by the communications center due to multiple radio transmissions on the dispatch channel. 4 minutes after the time of call, Engine 2's captain and firefighter made entry on the Alpha side of the structure with 150 feet of 2.5-inch hose line in a high-rise pack. Pretty common. They met the structure's maintenance personnel near the lobby who had been evacuating civilians. The Engine 2 crew used the elevator without putting it in fireman mode and took it to the 4th floor. On the 4th floor, the Engine 2 captain passed command to the next arriving officer and advised civilians to evacuate. After observing the 5th floor Alpha Bravo corner from the 4th floor parking garage skywalk, the Engine 2 crew went back and took the elevator to the 5th floor. 6 minutes after the time of the call, Engine 1 staged on the Charlie side to hook up to the FDC and to pump through the standpipe system. The Engine 2 crew went on air and reported heavy smoke and intense heat as they located the standpipe connection at the 5th floor landing of the north stairwell. They began to connect the high-rise pack. DC-4 arrived on scene and assumed command of the incident. The safety officer arrived and tried to initiate accountability. Truck 1, Engine 1, and Squad 1 crews were conducting primary searches on lower floors to evacuate civilian personnel. 11 minutes after the time of the call, Rescue 3 arrived on scene and was assigned secondary search and rescue responsibilities. A minute later, Engine 6 was assigned fire attack. The engineer notified command that water was established at the FDC to the standpipe system. 16 minutes after the time of the call, Engine 6 was looking for the mechanical room to shut down ventilation to the 5th floor, while Rescue 3 was going up the north stairwell. 18 minutes after the time of the call, Battalion Chief 1 arrived on scene and was assigned rehab. Where the hell was he coming from? The other side of the city? 18 minutes to get there for the first battalion chief? Anyways, was assigned rehab and to assist with the personnel accountability. Truck 1 set up on the Bravo side of the building near the Alpha Bravo corner. Within the next several minutes, Engine 6 had partially shut down the ventilation to the 5th floor. Engine 2 had stretched the uncharged hose line about 150 feet clockwise around the north stairwell and elevators to a large room, which was the reception area, just prior to the hallway to the Alpha Bravo corner. The note in the pre-plan of the structure, the doorway of the north stairwell opened to the west hallway, but the door was moved 90 degrees. Also, the door adjacent to the stairwell was closed and thought initially to be a wall. This prompted the Engine 2 crew to go clockwise, stretching the hose line. A little bit of confusion in the high heat and smoke environment.
Right.
Several crews using
they said the visibility was like nil in the stairwell, right?
Yeah. Several crews using the stairwell had dropped additional high-rise packs in the stairwell. The hose line was inadvertently charged, causing multiple kinks on the 5th floor between the standpipe connection and the 5th floor doorway. The Engine 2 crew stretching the hose line noticed it was charged and flowed water for a few seconds to cool down the area. At 23 minutes after time of the call, the Engine 2 crew SCBA low air alarm began going off, so they used the elevators to return to the ground floor to change cylinders. 1 minute later, the Rescue 3 crew on the 5th floor grabbed the hose line and could not get water to flow, reported that to command. Engine 1's engineer proceeded to connect to the FDC for the parking deck standpipe, a system in case it had been mislabeled. At 27 minutes after the time of the call, Engine 2 requested Truck 1 attempt to get water on the fire at the Alpha Bravo corner using the master stream. The IC and safety officer did not grant the request due to interior crews on the 5th floor. 28 minutes after the time of the call, crews located the fire room and Engine 1 connected to both standpipe systems. Engine 1 reported that there was still no water in the hose line. At this time, command requested a third alarm. Truck 1 had to reposition to deploy the ladder and was told that crews are on the fire floor and they were not to use the master stream. Rescue 3's crew low air alarms were going off, so they headed to the north stairwell. At 31 minutes after time of call, Engine 2 crew was back on the fire floor after taking the elevator to the 5th floor. Truck 1 broke out a window on the Bravo side, and Engine 6 was preparing an 1 3/4 hose line to bring up the ladder to hand through the window. The Engine 2 crew picked up their original hose line and moved it to the hallway, but reported they were 30 feet short and needed another section of hose. Engine 2 was feeling intense heat and thinking they were on the Bravo side, took out a window on the Alpha side to cool down. 41 minutes after the time of the call, still no water on the fire. Engine 2 tried to get the Bravo side window to retrieve the hose line from Engine 6 on the ladder, but could not get to it due to fire and heat. Engine 6 made entry through the window as Engine 2's low air alarms went off again. They made their way to the elevators and were coming out as Rescue 3, Engine 1, Quint 5, Engine 8, who were dispatched on the third alarm, which was actually the second alarm, were headed to the north stairwell. 43 minutes after time of the call, Engine 6 got water on the fire for the first time. Rescue 3 was back on Engine 2's original hose line, but reported to command that there was no water and IC ordered them out. Engine 6 requested air bottles be brought to the fire floor. At 48 minutes after the time of the call, Engine 8 was on the fire floor, reported heavy smoke and heat, and requested that the north stairwell be ventilated. Flames began venting outside Alpha windows that were broken. Battalion 1 requested a ladder truck be positioned on the Alpha side for possible use in getting water on the fire venting from the windows. Engine 6 requested additional hose line to reach the fire venting on the Alpha side. The Rescue 3 crew at the 5th floor north stairwell, noticed the Engine 8 captain and another firefighter were untangling high-rise hose line in the stairwell. One of the firefighters from Rescue 3 was extremely low on air, and the victim, Jeffrey Bowen, the Rescue 3 captain, told the Rescue 3 engineer to take him down the stairs. Captain Bowen proceeded down the hallway instead of exiting down the stairwell. Another Rescue 3 firefighter, with only a few years' experience, and an Engine 1 firefighter noticed Captain Bowen, the victim, headed down the hallway, so they followed after him. Captain Bowen and the 2 firefighters ended up in a small alcove with a bathroom at the end of it off the hallway to the fire room. All 3 firefighters' SCBA low air alarms were going off. The 2 firefighters grabbed Captain Bowen and headed back to the side alpha hallway. Captain Bowen was following the Rescue 3 firefighter, but the Engine 1 firefighter got separated from them in the hallway due to the heavy smoke. The Engine 1 firefighter realized he was extremely low on air and thought about calling a mayday. If you're thinking about calling a mayday, call a mayday.
Yes.
You don't need to convince yourself. You can always cancel it. If it pops into your head, it's probably the right thing to do.
Good advice.
He took about 10 steps.
Don't worry about them laughing at you later.
Right.
Hey, I'd rather be alive and laughed at than dead and memorialized. Because they're going to laugh at you about something anyways. It's the way it works.
Yeah. So get over it.
Yeah.
You don't get laughed at, do you, Doug?
No, never. Yeah.
Okay.
Do you?
Happen.
You never get made fun of? You get made fun of here.
All the time. My kid's primary purpose in life is to bug me.
Yeah. Mine too.
So the message was, if you're thinking about calling a mayday, call a mayday.
Call a mayday. He took about 10 steps and ran into the Engine 6 firefighter on the hose line from Truck 1. Shortly after, the Engine 1 firefighter followed the Engine 6 hose line to the window and got out on the ladder just as he ran out of air, which would have been when he could have canceled the mayday. Never mind, I'm out. Captain Bowen told his partner they needed to buddy breathe as he dropped to his knees. The firefighter told the victim to call a mayday, which he did. There's a note: when the victim made his buddy breather connection, he did not control the release of air, and all of the partner's air escaped through the victim's unclipped regulator. A minute or two later, the victim experienced an uncontrolled SCBA emergency and vomited in his facepiece and removed his facepiece. Captain Bowen told his partner to activate his pass. He activated his pass, but inadvertently the Rescue 3 firefighter turned his off. At 52 minutes after the time of the call, a mayday was transmitted by the Rescue 3 firefighter. The Engine 6 captain had radioed command and confirmed it was not the Engine 1 firefighter who called the mayday. The Rescue 3 firefighter crawled to the elevators and decided not to use them, then crawled to a reception desk. Being out of air, he removed his mask and called another mayday, and dropped his side portable radio in haste. He crawled down the Charlie side hallway toward the Delta side, trying numerous doors as he went along. He came across the door to the south stairwell. He placed his axe tool in the doorway and then crawled back down the hallway to Captain Bowen. The Rescue 3 firefighter removed his helmet, gloves, and hood and dragged the victim on his back by his SCBA straps to the south hallway. The firefighter pulled on and rolled the victim down the stairs until they ended up at the landing between the 3rd and 2nd floor.
That was a long distance, too.
That's pretty incredible to do all that.
That's
in a fire with no mask.
Breathing smoke.
Yeah, that's
breathing smoke.
If anybody deserves a medal, it's that guy.
Yep. Yeah, and he didn't have a lot of time on the job either, this guy.
At 71 minutes after the time of the call, Engine 8's captain exited the north stairwell and located Captain Bowen and the Rescue 3 firefighter in the south stairwell when he heard Captain Bowen's pass alarm sounding. The Engine 8 captain tried to give the victim air from his facepiece. The note here says the victim's pass alarm likely saved the life of his partner, who had fallen down the south stairwell with the victim and lost consciousness because he didn't have his helmet. The officer who heard the pass alarm was down the hallway and had just exited the north stairwell. The pass alarm was heard through the fire door of the south stairwell. And good on the captain there for hearing it and going to do something about it.
Going to it.
because there's so many
exactly.
times that a guy just standing outside, his pass alarm goes off and he doesn't know it's him. He thinks it's you. No one turns it off.
Yep.
So it's good
Yep.
to hear it and go, hey, wait a minute. So that's something I should check out.
Especially from an unexpected direction,
Yeah.
right? Not what
Like
he
there was a
thinking it
lot of
should've-
good work here. A lot of good
Oh,
yeah.
firefighting work here, right? It's just that the
absolutely.
cards were stacked against them.
Well,
Yeah.
how many times can we say that every episode? Like,
Yep.
and as soon as one thing goes wrong and 2 and 3, it just snowballs and we're doing an episode about it.
Yeah.
I hope we run out of things to talk about. But
Yep.
we
I
probably
hope so
never will.
too.
I mean, I don't talk to Paul because I
Unfortunately.
like to.
And
It's
I
'cause we
mean-
have to.
And I mainly pick ones where it's not the firefighter had a bad day. I mainly pick ones where, they were doing the right things and it didn't work out.
So 2 members from Squad 1 and a member from Engine 2 and Rescue 3 assisted in moving Captain Bowen as they all made their way to the second floor elevator and took it to the ground floor. Medic units transported Captain Bowen and the Rescue 3 firefighter to the hospital where the victim was pronounced dead and the firefighter was treated.
Most likely he had smoke inhalation, I would think. If he was up
Yeah.
and down that hallway twice, one time dragging the captain with no ABA,
Yeah.
he might have hit his head, but I'm sure he had smoke inhalation. Cause and origin. So there's not much on this, but as per the ATF report, the origin of the fire occurred in the building owner's records office on the 5th floor, which is actually the top floor, in the Alpha Bravo corner. So the cause of the fire was determined to be arson via use of a flammable liquid.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
In an occupied building on a hot day.
Yeah. So the NIOSH investigators identified some contributing factors that were factors in the death of the firefighter. So they identified some of the following items that are key contributors. And one is the fire was arson. So why is that a factor? Arson fires can progress a lot more quickly than a fire that's of a non-arson source. A lack of automatic fire suppression systems. The building was not sprinklered, remember, except for one room on one floor. And the room that was on fire was not the room. It was a multi-story / high-rise. Standard operating procedures were not followed. Now, this is not a high-rise building, but Asheville had what they called high-rise SOPs. So that's what they're referring to, that the ones that they had developed for this were not followed. Air management doctrine was not followed. There was inadequate strategy and tactics developed. So that's pointing the finger at the IC. And there was task saturation of the incident commander, meaning exceeded span of control.
How many times have we seen this? And I teach incident command and I harp on everybody. Make divisions, make groups, make branches, make stuff.
Well,
don't
you're
overwhelm
talking
yourself.
you're talking about span of control, but every one of these things, not following SOPs, multiple times you've seen that. Air management, inadequate, many times seen that. Inadequate strategy and tactics, IAPs, incident action plans, many times that's a factor. And span of control, many times that's a factor. These are who
was
we're
it?
seeing
Vinny
the same
Dunn
stuff.
Vinny Dunn or somebody say, we're not figuring out new ways to kill firefighters. We keep doing the
That's
same
right.
thing over and over.
Unfortunate.
The problem in this one with the task saturation is he had no one to make divisions and groups. Every truck showed up with only 3 people while the driver's out.
Yep.
So now you got 2.
Yep. 2 people. What are you going to do with 2 people?
There was only, there was an incident command was there, safety officer was there, fire marshal was there, battalion chief took 20 minutes to get there.
He was only on he was not on the first alarm.
Sure, so
he was on the fill out.
15 minutes to get there.
But he should have been listening anyways, right?
My point is, this wasn't New York with 7 chiefs standing around and you go here, you go there. I mean, they called the second alarm. I don't know if that brought more chiefs, but it didn't get heard. I mean, it's easy to I know this isn't blaming the incident commander, but it's not like he had people to divvy things up and didn't do it. The problem was there wasn't enough people there.
All the more reason to have your first alarm assignment adequate, and all the more reason to have adequate overhead goes to these buildings. So if you got a
What do
confirmed fire, you should have an incident management team that comes with you
What do you
in this
call
type
that
of
when
structure.
another department gets automatically called to your calls or something, so you don't have to think about it? You just, I don't know. There's a word for it. I can't place it. Maybe Doug can remind me. You don't have to go alone. Automatic aid,
Well,
mutual aid. Come
I
on.
don't think they're at the point they needed automatic aid. The thing said they had 11. Oh, sorry.
You got a fully involved 6-story office building in a medical center that's got a
No, not
working
fully
fire. Not
involved.
fully
You have a
involved.
working
Working
fire.
fire on the top floor.
Occupied.
Occupied with people. You need aid.
My point about not needing aid is it's not like their whole department was there. They had more of their own people they could have called.
Yeah, but the point I would like to make here is, okay, they sent a skinny first response to an unconfirmed fire. So in their SOPs or in their dispatch cards, it said on receipt of confirmed fire, you send these additional resources. The only overhead person that was in that was the battalion chief. They didn't send, 2 safety officers and 3 battalion chiefs. They didn't do any of that. Send those extra people that would help the incident commander manage the event. I mean, you need to have, your incident command on outside. You need to have them on the floor or 2 below. You need to, lobby control. You need to, you need to have safety officers on scene. You need to be doing accountability. There's all those things you need to do. And, who's going to do them? Like Doug says, the guy who's with the nozzle, that's basically what happened. So I think in this type of an occupancy, if you're going to have pre-programmed confirmed fire response, you make sure that there's enough people to manage it. Goes with it.
You got to put the overhead in place.
That's all I'm saying.
Or else you're gonna have problems. Exactly.
So
Because when things go wrong, you can't handle it.
If you're saying you should have, I'm not disagreeing. I'm just going to bug Paul for a minute. If you are saying you should have predetermined, based on the building type responses, should you also have predetermined assignments for those people? Or do we just leave it up all to the guy with the blue card to decide what he wants everyone to do?
No. The blue card tells everybody where to go. And you know what it means when I say go to the 5th floor.
No, I'm not saying when you say. I'm saying you already know.
Which is fine too.
Yeah. Oh, that's good.
I mean, the chief of training, and he has a job. The trainer who was part of the training division on shift, there was 1 per platoon. That guy, he had a pre-assignment when there was a confirmed fire call, and his pre-assignment was safety officer.
Yeah.
So more of that type of stuff.
Yeah.
People sitting in the office, send them out the door, give them a job.
I don't even think it's just the people that arrive in the SUVs. You're sending fire companies with only 3 people, and you want engine 2 who they lose their driver to pump the truck. They have a 65 or 2.5 by themselves in this fire. Yeah. Like, having less people on the truck means you should be sending more trucks off the bat.
My point exactly.
Recommendation
but if you just a second, if you don't send officers and staff people to manage the incident, then the people that are on the trucks are going to have to do it themselves.
Yeah.
Which means they're not going to be on the hose line, which means stuff is going to get missed because it's not their primary job. They don't necessarily do it as well because they got 2 things going on in their head. So
squad 2 captain, you're in charge of the fire floor or whatever.
Yeah. So really, this is a program for disaster, and it came up this time.
Yeah.
They probably got away with it 1,000 times before, but not this time.
Exactly. Just like Charleston. Recommendation 1. Fire department should ensure that existing standard operating procedures for high-rise firefighting operations are reviewed, implemented, and enforced. The discussion about this is the difference between a successful emergency operation that is brought to early conclusion and one that becomes a prolonged effort, like this one, is often heavily taxing a department's resources. It depends greatly on actions taken by first arriving companies. Experience has shown that initial actions at a high-rise emergency must fall into a priority order if the operation is to progress smoothly to a successful conclusion. A high-rise fire takes considerable commitment for staffing, resources, and differs greatly from a residential or other commercial structure fire. Most importantly, the incident management system structure must be developed from the bottom up and initiated by the first driving officer. In this incident, the department did not follow these guidelines from their existing SOPs. Command did request a second alarm, which was never dispatched by a communications center and went unnoticed for more than 20 minutes. The department's SOP requires a third alarm be struck upon the confirmation of a working fire in a high rise. Also, lobby control was never established, and the stairwell support for evacuation and firefighting operations was also never established. The north stairwell became charged with smoke due to the door on the 5th floor being propped open by an uncharged hose, which contaminated the stairwell down to at least the first floor, if not the ground floor. Additionally, firefighters from one of the first alarm companies used the elevator 3 times to go directly to the fire floor rather than 2 floors below the fire floor or walk up the stairs. Windows were taken out on the fire floor, which helped with the ventilation of the fire floor only. Additionally, an SOP provides the framework of a fire department's response to a high-rise incident, plus the special challenges that are presented and the strategies and tactics that must be employed to perform safely and effectively in a high-rise fire environment. An SOP establishes a degree of order to an emergency scene, by which the nature is usually chaotic and very hectic. The fire department in this incident had developed an SOG for fire high rises, which this is marginal high rise, but it was similar building. In February of 2004, the guideline had been reviewed by their SOG committee in 2011 in February, so just before this happened, 6-8 months before. The guideline defined a high-rise occupancy as any structure over 3 stories or a structure that has a standpipe. The department's SOG discussed the following responsibilities: command, deployment of resources, first alarm assignment called operations in the standard operating guideline, lobby control, enclosed stairwells or towers, elevators, ventilation, and high-rise kits. So they didn't follow their own SOG for this building, which of course could be a problem.
So I just want to comment here that it mentions high rise quite a lot in this, and this building by definition is actually not a high rise. A high rise is defined in the International Fire Code, which is the fire code that's adopted across the U.S., as a building where occupancy floor starts at 75 feet and goes up. That's not to say that I disagree with a lot of the points that are being made here, because a lot of these things are similar in mid-rises as they are in high rises, but the code changes and some of the features in the building will change, like floor sizes and fire protection systems and so forth. So that can all change basis mid-rise, high-rise. So it's semantics, really. The point was they didn't do any of these things is the problem.
Yeah, and I mean, for them, it was that it had a standpipe. They're saying, and more than 3 stories in their mind was a high rise for them.
Yeah, it's good we're getting seagull critics there, Paul. I can hear them.
Yeah, can you hear them? Well, if I'm quiet, I can edit them out after. Yeah, it's a crows.
Crows. Oh, okay, good.
Crows.
Oh, it's always like to have commentary.
Yeah, we got the peanut gallery and the real peanut gallery. You want to do number 2?
Yeah, recommendation 2. Fire departments should ensure that a deployment strategy for low frequency, high risk incidents is developed and implemented. Boy, have we talked about this before.
Yeah.
Anyway, discussion. Since no 2 fire departments are alike, there is no standard scale to measure and evaluate frequency and severity of risk. I'm not sure I totally agree with that, but okay. Some fire departments will have a greater or lesser degree of tolerance for risk than others. The intent of the risk management process is for a fire department to develop a standard level of safety. So, like if you have a staffing model of only 3 per truck, clearly you've got higher risks than somebody who's got 5 per truck.
Yeah.
So, or pump. Anyway, this standard level of safety that this fire department may decide upon defines the parameters of the acceptable degree of risk for which members perform their job functions. For example, high-rise fires are low-frequency, high-risk events from the standpoint that they do not occur on a regular basis, thank goodness. But when they do occur, the risks are significant. A fire department must have a deployment strategy in place to effectively manage a high-rise fire. This deployment strategy must address staffing, incident management, appropriate strategy and tactics, use of fixed protection if there is in the building, adequate water supply, and other resource logistical management issues. In order to effectively contain and extinguish a fire in a high-rise, a fire department must also have in place a standard operating procedure for high-rise fire protection operations that addresses training for high-rise operations, Particularly due to the complexity of these incidents, the knowledge of fire protection systems that's required for these buildings, pre-incident planning process should be there for high-rise structures, proper high-rise hose and nozzle configurations. Sometimes that means low pressure, usually does, low pressure systems, and compartmentalization of the fire and evacuation of the occupants. Because high-rise fires are low-frequency events, it is proven beneficial that an agency's high-rise procedures Because high-rise fires are low-frequency events, it has proven beneficial that an agency's high-rise procedures be utilized at all high-rise alarms. When a fire department responds to a high-rise building, it enables an on-scene department personnel the ability to exercise the agency's high-rise procedures, another reason for having a better first alarm. Therefore, the fire attack company becomes familiar with the access to the upper floors by checking 2 floors below the reported fire flow for fire floor layout possibilities, familiarization, in other words, establish staging and communicating this to the IC, so stage 2 down. The assignment of a company to lobby control allows this company to become familiar with the building systems, the annunciator system, if there is one, elevator systems, elevator recall, fire control room if provided. So these systems are in high rises. They might not have been in this building because it's not a high rise. So location of stairwell access for companies and stairwell pressurization. The apparatus drivers then become familiar with the fire department connectors. That would be one of their jobs. In this incident, the use of the elevator by Engine 2 in a 6-story high-rise could have added to the seriousness of this incident, especially by not putting it in the elevator's firefighter control mode. Taking the elevator 3 times they did to the fire floor. Historical incidents have occurred where firefighters have died by taking the elevator to the fire floor. I know one in particular, where the fire ended up being in proximity to the elevator shaft. This is an example of the need for periodic and refresher high-rise training identifying safety concerns. One just happened half-hour drive from where I was the fire chief. This building did not have complete sprinklers, this particular building, and the elevator doors were not protected by a vestibule. In a 6-story building, the advantage of taking the stairwell from the ground floor reduces the risk for responders going above, unknowingly, a known working fire and allows the fire attack company the ability to check 2 floors below the fire floor for staging and allows the fire attack company the ability to quickly see a typical floor layout. Might not really apply in these medical buildings, but
because they might be different. Yeah.
Oh, they're vastly different. But anyways, so procedures for fire attack have shown connecting the first hose line to the standpipe outlet on the floor below the fire floor allows the hose lines to be flaked out in the stairwell before charging with water prior to opening the stairwell door on the fire floor. This is especially important if the fire turns out to be adjacent to the access door in the stairwell, because you don't know where it is initially. And if firefighters have to fight their way onto the floor, it helps to not have your water supply right next to you. It also allows firefighters the ability to extend the fire hose onto the floor below instead of doing it in front. So stretch it out, make sure it's kinked out. It's probably why they didn't have water. There was a kink in it, and they just didn't see it. It was full of smoke and heat. Departments should develop a deployment plan for sequentially arriving chief officers. Don't think there were any at this incident, and should consider assigning the second chief officer to whatever floor is involved in the high-rise incident. So the only other chief that arrived on this was the battalion chief, and he was assigned to
accountability and rehab. No, safety went to accountability. The chief went to rehab. Come on. You got 5 guys in a building on a fire floor. He needs to be the fire guy.
We never did hear who all came on the third alarm. That was really the second alarm, right? So I'm guessing at least one more chief came. But I agree that battalion chief should have been the fire floor supervisor.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you can't depend on an acting captain to take that job and manage multiple companies.
You shouldn't you shouldn't have a captain doing that job. Never mind acting.
That's right.
It's not a captain's job. A captain's job is to look after his crew. A chief's job is to look after multiple crews.
Yeah.
Paul.
Anyway, this goes on. I'm not disagreeing with you at all. I agree. But this goes on. Nobody would disagree with that, Doug. Come on. Often 2.5.
The captain can supervise a couple of crews if they're all in the immediate area.
No, a captain supervises his crew.
We better keep going or else this will go on forever.
Anyway, this goes on. Often a 2.5-inch high-rise hose packs are carried and utilized by fire departments. If anybody is going in with standpipe packs that are 1.5 or 1.75, think again. Anyway, these departments should evaluate the use of an additional smaller lightweight hose on high-rise packs. 2-inch is now becoming much more common, with 1.5-inch couplings and 1.5-inch nozzles. Some advantages in weight, not a lot of loss in flow. Anyway, that'll provide up to 200 gallons per minute US in comparison to the 2.5-inch hose lines that produce about 250 to 325. Particularly with regards to crew sizes, Doug? Like you're saying, 2 guys on a 2.5, 3 guys on a 2.5. If that thing's pumping 100 PSI, you got big issues handling that hose. Big issues getting it around corners, through doorways. Smaller hose is beneficial, and running a 50 PSI nozzles. And in our standpipe pack, we ran 35 PSI nozzles because we weren't concerned about distance. We were concerned about volume. And so we made sure that we could get the volume on a standpipe system that wasn't working really well for us. Anyway, at high-rise fires in LA, Los Angeles, for those who don't know, these lighter weight hose lines have proven to be beneficial because they are more mobile. Sorry, that's just what I said. Stretching a line from the stairwell onto the fire floor, easier to remove kinks, can be extended easier with less staffing. Also, the fire department may want to evaluate the use of 2.5-inch hose pigtails, approximately 6 feet in length, with a pre-connected 2.5 by 1.5-inch gated Y, which I had introduced almost 20 years ago, that allows for the connection of 2 hose lines and the movement of these hose lines within the stairwells. The option to use a 2.5-inch hose lines can still be used based upon the size and magnitude of the fire if you have the staffing. And, without the staffing, you're going to have problems. I would add you should also have
I completely disagree with the last
pressure
sentence
gauge.
there. Having a gated Y is not okay in a high rise. That is not something you want to do.
Depends what your operating procedures are, I would say. No matter what you got, Doug, you need to know how to use it.
Do not put a gated Y on your hose.
Gated
Ys are for wildland fires.
No.
A gate, yes. A gated Y,
a gate on the 65, and
yes.
a Y if you want to run 2 lines, you just reduce it from the 65 is what you're saying?
You just reduce it, yes. You don't put a gated Y that can be kick shut in a.
Well, what about the TFT one that the one side's always open?
Whatever. How about you just have one hose?
With a
just
pressure.
Have one hose.
They have a
just
pressure
have
gauge.
One hose.
One side's open. The other side is a gate. So if you want to add another line, you can. I like that.
That gets kick shut in a smoky environment.
You just make sure you have a gated
in the lobby.
Handles you can't kick shut.
These guys had to mask up before they got there because it was so smoky.
Yeah, they couldn't get up the stairs. Yeah,
it was the thing as soon as you open the door, you're not in a clean environment anymore. You don't want a gated Y because the next crew comes in, they don't know what they're doing. It's smoky as whatever, and they kick it shut, and they don't even know they kicked it shut. And now you're 200 feet down the hallway in a fire room, and you just lost your water.
But the gated Y with only one. With only one. Doug, with only one gate. The main side, the primary attack side, can't be closed.
Sure. So you add a second hose and it still gets kicked shut. Or it gets flipped upside down and gets shut. You don't want a gated Y in a fire building, period, end of story. Read the next topic.
This fire reminds me of Meridian 1. Although it's a much smaller building, very similar problems. Water flow, they couldn't use elevators, so they got tired out. But I mean, the same kind of stuff, having to bring lines up manually from the outside. Recommendation 3.
I'll do number 3 because I don't want to do number 4 because you'll get too much pleasure out of me reading number 4.
Oh, why is it says, command and blue card stuff? I love it.
Oh, yeah. Fire department should ensure that the incident commander develops an incident action plan, which is communicated to all firefighters on scene and includes effective strategy and tactics for high-rise operations, a timely coordinated fire attack, and a coordinated search plan. When establishing command at any incident, one of the most important responsibilities of the incident commander is to create an appropriate incident action plan. This is especially important at high-rise incidents due to the fact that these incidents are low-frequency, high-risk events, most places. Probably not in Manhattan or downtown Toronto. Based on the initial size up, the incident commander has to absorb and process a lot of information in a very short period of time and develop an initial incident action plan that is based upon the department's standard operating procedures or guidelines, encompassing effective strategy and tactics, and incorporates the incident priorities, which are life safety, incident stabilization, and property conservation. A high-rise fire is completely different from residential or other commercial structure fires in terms of strategy. That seldom is there an option of going defensive. I mean, this is a 6-story building. You could have went defensive, but true high-rise, you can't. The incident commander must have the ability to deploy a lot of firefighters in a short period of time. That's hard to do when they're not there, to effectively command and control these types of incidents. The tactics must not only include the standard tactical assignments such as search, rescue, fire attack, and ventilation, but must include the ability to get resources to the fire floor in a short period of time and in a ready-to-work mode. These considerations must include adequate staffing, water supply, supporting fire protection systems, sprinkler systems, and standpipe systems, and various incident command system roles and responsibilities such as lobby control, establishing and supporting base operations, stairwell support, system control, and ground support. One of the most critical factors for high-rise firefighting operations is the lead time necessary to get personnel and equipment in position at their assignments. This is the single greatest difference between controlling an incident in a high-rise structure as opposed to an incident at ground level. The incident commander must keep this in mind. That's something that I know Toronto started doing. Like traditionally, when you get dispatched, your clock stops when you arrive on scene, but they've put in a benchmark of like, okay, now we're at the patient or now we're at the fire floor, which accounts for the vertical travel time from getting out of your truck, in the building, in the elevator, up the stairs. So it adds time to just, because most fire departments, you arrive on scene, you pull the air brake, engine one's on scene, clock stopped. That's all they worry about, right? Well, you're still 5 minutes, if not more, from the fire, from doing work, right? So it's something to keep in mind.
No, absolutely. Or big complexes too, where the travel time to the suite or the whatever the problem is big.
A coordinated fire attack is another essential element that must occur as quickly as possible. Consideration must be given to the time it takes to get adequate resources to the fire floor and apply water to the fire. The first company on the scene, by the use of a safe route, shall proceed to the area where the emergency exists, assess the scope of the emergency, communicate this information to the incident commander or incoming units, and take measures to mitigate the emergency. Once the first in-company officer commits to a tactical objective, i.e. fire attack, and other resources arrive on scene, command of the incident should be passed on to another on-scene officer or transitioned to a higher-ranking officer. No matter what the scenario, the first in-engine company conducting offensive operations must get the proper size and length of hose line to the fire without delay. Firefighters from the engine company can prepare the proper high-rise hose for standpipe operations. After confirming the size and length of the line to be stretched with the company officer and verifying the route into the building, the engine company can begin the attack. A proper stretch to the seat of the fire is key to efficient suppression. Not only must the optimal route be used, but the line must also be a sufficient flow rate, gallons per minute or liters per minute, and length to work in the fire area, and immediate interior exposures. Firefighters must then operate effectively to control the fire and heat conditions. This action will allow safe and rapid searches by truck companies and will give any trapped victims their best chance at survival. In this incident, the incident commander had personnel with hose line on the fire floor and conducting a search of the fire floor. However, an effective fire attack never occurred due to issues with air management and getting water from the standpipe system, which caused a multitude of issues. Also, the fire floor was searched multiple times, but with no consistency or plan. Building maintenance personnel assisted with the evacuation of occupants on the floors below the fire. The floors below the fire were not searched by the fire department until after the fire was controlled. When issues develop that impact or alter the incident action plan, this information must be communicated to command. These issues have been resolved or overcome in order These issues have to be resolved or overcome in order to successfully control the incident.
Yeah, exactly, right. And I mean, these are long recommendations, but I think they're so important if you're taking the podcast as an educational snippet, because these are things we need to learn about these kind of fires.
And I think an incident action plan shouldn't have to be a paragraph or a book told to you by a chief. You should have training and procedures, and if he says, Engine 2, you're on fire attack on the 4th floor. That's all you need to know. You go do that.
Yeah,
They shouldn't have
You're
to.
on.
Command should not
you're-
have to say, Engine 2, stage your truck on 1st Street and grab your high-rise
Yeah.
kits and put them on your back and walk up to the building and go to the alpha stairway and
No.
climb up the stairs and connect your hose and stretch it down the thing. You don't need to do all that. It should be fire attack, search and rescue, whatever you're told. That's all you need to know. I mean, the size up.
You should.
The size up that command gives the first arriving unit / the chief when they get there might give a better one. Should get the gears rolling in everybody's head that's on the way there and what they're coming to.
And the guy should know enough how to lay the hose out on the floor below, how to not use the elevator, or if you use the elevator, put it on firefighter mode. They need to know all that stuff ahead of time. That's in your training.
Yeah.
Get the kinks out of the hose, hook it to the standpipe properly, whatever.
Yeah. The only thing I would add is this: if the chief in charge has some situational awareness information, like the fires in the Alpha Bravo corner, that should be transmitted also.
Oh yeah.
And you've got companies so and so coming up behind you, or are going to provide logistical support for you, that type of information. But you're right. At the fire is not the time to learn the job.
To me, the term like incident action plan just sounds like you're going to be sitting here reading the whole playbook out. This is what I want you guys to do, where that turns me off of it. But because I think all that stuff should be figured out ahead of time in training and procedures on this is what the first, second, third engine truck, whatever, should do when they get to a high rise, so that you just go do your job. And the chief doesn't have to worry about all that because they got other stuff to worry about, like calling second and third alarms. But
and to be clear, the incident action plan is for the supervisors, not for the doers. It's for the supervisors of the doers. And for your particular assignment job, it's called a task, and you get one pager. It gives you what radio channel you're on. It gives you what are the hazards. It gives you what they want you to do, who you're reporting to, and that's it. So, and what to do in case there's an emergency. So it's a one-pager incident action plan. But I agree, for this kind of fire, go to the 5th floor, you're on fire attack. Go to the 4th floor, you're on search and rescue and evacuation, whatever.
Yeah, but the point is, the key there is for this kind of fire. Because if you're doing a hazmat incident, you're going to spend a lot more time on your incident action plan.
Right.
If it's a wildland fire, you might spend an hour on your incident action plan in your briefings in the mornings. So it can change. But in this here, which is, I hazard to say, a bread and butter type fire, really you should have it nailed.
Okay, clear your throat, Paul. Here's your bread and butter here for this recommendation.
Recommendation number 4. Fire department should ensure that incident commander utilizes divisions and group supervisors for effective tactical level management. Okay, you need to put these supervisors in place to overcome your span of control, your task saturation. And that's the beauty of ICS, is you give the task to somebody else, right? You give the task to somebody else and they run with it. You have to have that confidence and that experience. These guys are chatting back and forth in the background just to make me chuckle. For any incident involving a high-rise building, the need for effective span of control and the effective use of staffing and resources requires effective tactical level management. In this case, the incident commander could have used divisions and or groups to manage the available resources committed to the incident. A division is the organizational level having responsibility and operations for a defined geographic area. A group is an organizational responsible for a specific functional assignment. So at an incident, so a division could have been the 5th floor, and a group could have been the evacuation group, for example, to evacuate all the other floors and search them. The use of divisions and groups in ICS organization provides a standard system to divide the incident scene into smaller subordinate management units or areas. Complex emergency situations often exceed the capability of one officer to effectively manage the entire operation. Divisions and groups reduce the span of control to more manageable, smaller-sized units. Divisions and groups allow the incident commander to communicate principally with those organizational levels rather than with multiple individual company officers, providing for command and incident scene organization. A span of control of 3 to 7 resources, with 5 being the optimum, is considered desirable in most cases. To maintain effective span of control at each level of the command structure, the organization should this can be accomplished by adding levels or reassigning responsibilities within the existing levels, or a combination of both. The incident commander should also consider activating additional levels within the command structure where activities become highly complex or are conducted over a large geographical area. In this incident, the incident commander could have assigned an operations section chief to oversee all firefighting operations. Generally, division group responsibilities should be assigned early in the incident, typically the first company assigned to a geographic area or function. The early establishment of division groups provides an effective incident management organization framework on which the operation can be built and expanded. For high rises, the numerical numbering within a high rise building would be used as a division supervisor identifier, such as the assigned floor. For example, the assigned officer in charge of the 5th floor would be Division 5 supervisor. The division supervisor is responsible for coordinating fire attack and maintaining resource accountability for that geographic area for that floor. The functional assignments may cover more than one floor, such as ventilation, such as the ventilation group supervisor. First company on scene is normally fire attack. The officer serves as IC until passed to another on-scene company officer or transferred to a higher ranking officer. Upon arrival of the fire floor, a fire attack officer becomes the floor division supervisor until relieved. We need more air supplies on the 5th floor, so you're going to talk to either command or to whoever's in charge of logistics to get you more air if there's a logistics section chief. It works. It's proven. It was a problem in Baltimore when those 3 firefighters died in 2021 or something. And after the big report, the scathing report about Baltimore, and the incident commander said he was overtask saturated. He had 26 direct reports during the emergency, during the Mayday, while they were searching for the guys and recovering them. Since then, Baltimore did immense training on incident command for all their officers. And when they had the ship hit the bridge, Francis Scott Key Bridge, they did, I have the radio traffic, I listened to the radio traffic, they did textbook ICS, Incident Command. They assigned divisions and groups and sectors and liaisons and everything else like they should have done. The battalion chief in charge did a great job with, a crazy incident like a ship taking a bridge out. So it can be done, and it does help. Thanks for the soapbox, Doug.
The only things that I don't love is I think a lot of this stuff needs to be pre-planned more than up to command. If you're you should have, like Denny said earlier, high rise. This building wasn't a high rise, but let's just pretend it is for the report.
Complex call, whatever.
But a high rise should have a bigger response going to it. And that doesn't just mean more engines and trucks and chiefs. You're going to need more air. You're going to need a guy to bring the air up. You're going to all that. And that's why you need to have the staging area 2 floors below, because that's where your extra air bottles are. That's where your medical kits are. That's where your extra hose lines are. That's where your crews ready to go relieve you are. And that's
unless you're on a ro-ro ship, Doug.
Sure.
Like the last incident,
where
everything's upside down. So you need flexibility too, of course.
My point is backing up what we've said earlier, where this isn't, you can't treat this like a residential house. There's a lot more factors that go into it, and it's like a residential house that's on the 15th floor of a building, and you're on the bottom. Mm-hmm. There's things you have to worry about there.
But there's more than that. I mean, one of the things that we talked about earlier was the need to compartmentalize. So has anybody asked, well, why was there so much smoke on the floor when the fire was in a back room somewheres? And we took pains at the beginning to tell you how the building was built. And the building was built with flimsy partitions, steel stud and drywall, and suspended ceilings with a 2-foot plenum over above. So I'd be willing to bet that the majority of the air return on those floors was through the common plenum.
Yeah.
So if you have a fire in one little corner of one little room, it wouldn't take long before you would smoke and gas out the entire floor. And the minute you opened the stairwell door, it was an opportunity for that to go down there too. So this is part of pre-planning. but it's also part of the reason why you don't want to be organizing all of this on the fire floor itself. Like Doug's saying, 2 floors down, you absolutely, or even 1 floor down is better than no floors down. Recommendation 5, fire departments should ensure that the incident commander designates a staging area at least 2 floors below the fire floor. So the challenging nature of high-rise incidents requires modifications to the standard incident command system concept of a staging area. The limited access and vertical travel distance of large high-rise buildings requires establishment of a resource staging area within the building. In other words, not out on the street 15, 20 minutes away. The high-rise staging area must also serve multiple functions, including stockpiling equipment, reserve personnel, doing initial rehab, and medical treatment if necessary. The staging area is generally located a minimum of 2 floors below the emergency, as long as the atmosphere there is tenable. Possibly might not have been in this building, eh? So additional companies directed to staging should bring priority equipment from the base lobby. Spare SCBA cylinders are always a first priority. An agency should provide guidance for utilizing a sling to connect 2 SCBA bottles together. So in other words, if you're climbing up to the fire, don't go empty-handed, basically is what they're telling you. So you can carry SCBA cylinders more effectively if you've got systems set up for doing that, like slings and so forth. Staging area manager must maintain a record of equipment ordered, and time delivered. This equipment or any equipment order must be separated and stored so it's readily accessible. The storage areas can be identified by taping signs on the wall, if that's what your procedure is. Some people use different colored tarps and that kind of stuff. At this incident, no interior staging area was established at all. They were doing it all from the street. When companies ran out of breathing air or were fatigued, they had to walk from the 5th floor to the ground floor, 5 flights of stairs. Once they completed rehab and were assigned back to the floor, they had to walk back up those 5 flights of stairs while on air, because as I told you, the stairwell was so smoky, they had to walk up on air. So how much air have you got left when you get up there? 1,200 liter, 30-minute cylinder. This leaves about 5 to 7 minutes of work before the low air alarm activates.
Recommendation number 6, 5 departments should ensure that firefighters are properly trained in air management. Division Chief Bobby Halton, retired chief and editor of Fire Engineering Magazine, deceased, notes, if you run out of air in a working fire today, you are in mortal danger. There is no good air on the floor anymore, no effective filtering methods, no matter what others may say to the contrary. The only protection for firefighters in the toxic smoke environment in today's fire is the air you carry on your backs. Like scuba divers, firefighters must manage their air effectively and leave enough reserve air to escape in case of unforeseen occurrences while inside the structure fire. Firefighters must manage their air so that they leave immediately dangerous to life or death in the atmosphere before the low air alarm activates. This leaves an adequate emergency reserve air and removes the noise of the low air alarm from the fire ground. Air management is a program that the fire service can use to ensure that firefighters have enough breathing air to complete their primary mission and to escape an unforeseen emergency. Fire departments and firefighters need to recognize that the smoke in modern construction is an IDLH atmosphere and manage your air along with their work period so that firefighters exit the IDLH with their reserve air intact. It's a reserve. You shouldn't have to use it to get out. NFPA 1404, Standard for Respiratory Protection Training, states that firefighters should exit from an IDLH atmosphere before the consumption of reserve air supply begins. A low air alarm is a notification that the individual is consuming the reserve and that the activation of reserve air alarm is an immediate action for the individual and the firefighting team. It's actually a mayday, really, because you're on your reserve. In this incident, the firefighters, including the victim and his partner, had to ascend the high-rise medical office building to the 5th floor, 5 flights up, via interior stairwells that were full of smoke. The firefighters had to ascend the stairwell on air from their SCBA while carrying all their equipment up the stairs. Once they got to the fire floor, the air in their 1,200-liter, 30-minute cylinders was depleted and was not sufficient for firefighting and search efforts. Note, the firefighters' personal experience has demonstrated that the 1,200-liter cylinder, 30-minute, will not provide a working firefighter with 30 minutes of air. The 1,200-liter cylinder will only last an average firefighter actively engaged in suppression activities about 15 minutes. Many firefighters reported during interviews with NIOSH investigators that their end-of-service time indicators sounded on the fire floor. so they didn't get out. There was heavy fired smoke conditions on the fire floor and in the stairwell used by the firefighters. In order to exit the IDLH atmosphere, firefighters had to exit the fire floor and then climb down 5 flights of floor to ground level. There was no staging area set up on the lower floors that would have provided an area of non-IDLH refuge for the firefighters could have rehabbed and replenished their air. Another option in a high-rise building would be to increase the pressure of stairwell to prevent the infiltration of smoke if fire crews configure PPV fans properly, which could provide refuge from the IDLH atmosphere. Note, the fire stairwell in the building had significant volume of smoke from the 5th floor down to the lobby due to the entrainment from a phenomenon known as reverse stack effect. Reverse stack effect results from a temperature difference between the warm air outside and the cooler inside air that creates a buoyancy-driven downward flow of air and smoke from the top to the bottom of a tall building. The firefighters described the smoke in the stairwell as being very dense, stating they were forced to breathe supplied air from prior to arriving the fire floor. The victim ascended and descended and reascended the smoke-filled stairs, approximately only on air from the top two floors, as he re-entered the fire building a second time after replenishing his initial air supply. Prior to exhausting his supplied air, firefighters reported that the victim's behavior was somewhat atypical, with bouts of apparent confusion, disorientation, and impaired physiomotor ability. The victim's cause of death was determined to be smoke and fume inhalation in an oxygen-depleted environment. The carboxyhemoglobin level of 22%. It is possible that the victim would exhibit only mild to moderate symptoms of the toxic effects of CO2 until 15 to 20% was achieved. Confusion, disorientation, impaired physiomotor ability are documented symptoms for mild to moderate CO exposure, especially in active individuals. Accordingly, the victim could experience mild to moderate CO poisoning from his exposure to the smoke in the stairwell before they put their mask on, right? Because he's trying to save air. So they're breathing as much smoke as they could take before they put the SCBA on. These symptoms of CO exposures likely contributed to the events that resulted in the victim exhausting his air supply while attempting to locate the exit stairwell and removing his regulator. In active individuals, unconsciousness can result with only a small increase in CO levels. At this point, the victim's CO levels were likely already elevated, and the additional CO exposure on the fire floor, compounded with the initial CO exposure in the stairwell, may have contributed to his rapid loss of consciousness as compared to his firefighting partner. We saw this in that California wildland fire, where the firefighter exhibited abnormal behavior. He was tending to a brush pile that had been smoldering and burning, and then all of a sudden, all of his partners were all fine, and he started to exhibit abnormal behavior, and they found out that this was likely a leading factor in his cause of death. He fell off the edge of a wall or something after.
So this incident happened in 2011, pretty much before firefighters became more aware of hydrogen cyanide poisoning, which is even more deleterious, even worse for you than carbon monoxide. So he was more than likely had hydrogen cyanide poisoning also, but they wouldn't have thought to look for that.
No, they wouldn't have thought of looking
Not in 2011. No.
I can do 7. I'll just try to skim it because the next recommendation just talks about fire departments ensuring that firefighters are properly trained in out-of-air SCBA emergencies and SCBA repetitive skills training like buddy breathing and clearing a face piece. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but firefighters should know how their equipment works, and your equipment includes your different ports to connect for buddy breathing and sharing bottles and RIC packs and all that kind of stuff, because when stuff hits the fan and you're in the emergency is not the time to try to figure out where do I connect this and what do I disconnect and how do I push and pull and all this with a gloved hand
in the dark with your gloves on and blacked out. Yep.
When you're at the end of your work stretch. So know how to do this stuff so that if you're ever in the moment where you have to do it, your muscle memory is there.
Yeah, they think maybe in here it says that he may not have activated his regulator DOF button, so to take the regulator off your mask to stop the airflow.
Yeah.
They figure because he ran out of air, he didn't do that, and therefore when the partner gave him air, poof, it all went out because that DOF button wasn't depressed.
Well, plus he's suffering from cognitive impairment.
Right, exactly.
Recommendation 8, I think, is a good one, though. Fire department should ensure that incident commanders provided a chief's aid to assist in incident management, including communications and accountability. We've talked about that many times. That was a big recommendation on the Baltimore one that Paul talked about, and they adopted it right away. So the chief that's in command should only have to worry about command, and he should have people helping him at the command post, talking to dispatch, getting second or third alarms, worrying about everything else. He should just look out at what he's worrying about. And that's all the YouTube videos on YouTube about the FDNY, about their command posts. I just love watching, because there's one chief that's just the guy in charge, and he has his minions around him that are running the iPad and running the command board and talking on the radio and talking to dispatch and giving reports, and he can just worry about the fire, and that's how it should be.
Less likely that second alarm would have been missed. Less likely that would have been missed, because the aide would have picked up on that.
Yeah, I don't know when that second alarm was called, if it was on the way there or once they got there. But
I think when he saw the fire.
It still blows my mind that 6 other people didn't realize that a second alarm should be called and call it. That's what I don't get.
Yeah. But presumably that was recorded at dispatch.
Maybe otherwise, a bit of complacency here. Like, here it is, another fire in another building, another alarm, and like, oh, it's really burning. Hang on. Now we got to get in gear.
Well, it also, like, it's a little bit on the communication center. The SOP we talked about earlier said that a working fire in a high-rise should be a third alarm.
Yeah,
so
right away.
They dispatch the working fire assignment. Like, they should be saying, hey, you want the second and third alarm too? Or just send it. Like, it's, I don't know.
Right.
Any one of these things that happened individually probably wouldn't have been a big deal. But this one happened, that one happened, and it all just became a big deal. Yeah.
Yeah. Number 10, it just says firefighters properly trained in Mayday, standard operating guidelines, that IAFF firefighter survival training. When we had Lionel Carruthers on here, I mean, he stated that it helped him save his life and his captain or the other firefighter's life in how to bail out of the window and to stay calm. And he remembered that training. It's critical to have that training when you have a Mayday. Of course, if you're cognitively impaired because of CO poisoning, because of the poison, the stairway full of smoke, you're not thinking about that.
The thing, like we talked about when we were reading it, like if you think, hey, I should probably call a Mayday, call the Mayday. And if you think, hey, Paul, you should call a Mayday right now. Like he said, he told his partner to call a Mayday. You don't have to waste your time telling Paul to call a Mayday. Just call the Mayday.
Call it yourself.
Like,
I'm up here.
Push the pass alarm button. Just do it.
Yeah.
There could have been a little bit of like, well, you're the captain, I'm the 2-year guy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But
yeah, it suggests though that there might not have been much training on that
and experience. Right. How often does the 11 station Asheville Fire Department have to call Maydays? Probably not that often.
Right.
Yeah.
If you go to recommendation 11, fire department should ensure the incident commander designates the incident safety officer and an assistant incident safety officers as necessary. And the discussion in here is that at this incident, the department's pre-designated incident safety officer responded to the incident, was deployed to other functions. This included deploying fire line tape and assisting the incident commander with strategy and tactics, plus personnel accountability. That's not the incident safety officer's job.
Because why?
For problems.
Why was he reassigned? Why was he reassigned?
Because there was no one else.
Because they didn't properly staff the command team. That's why.
And then that's recommendation number 12. Staffing levels should be maintained and effectively utilized. During this incident, several engines were riding short, right?
This recommendation is not up to like the firefighters listening to this podcast. This recommendation is chief level and city admin level, right?
Well, we have chiefs that listen to our podcast. We're okay.
The ones that listen to this podcast probably get it. I hope.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but let me put you in the room at city council.
Uh-oh.
I tried for years to get additional admin staff And one of the main reasons was because there was tasks in the fire department that we weren't getting accomplished, tasks that related directly to our efficiency and safety of our firefighters, but they were chief officers. So they would have less issues with counselors hiring firefighters and fire prevention officers, and more issues hiring what's perceived as overhead. And the problem with that is that you need some overhead, because when you come to incidents in particular, as well as being ready for incidents, if you don't have adequate administration capability, you're never going to get there. And yeah, you can get away with it for years even, but there are times when it's going to bite you. And in Asheville, this bit them bad.
And I mean, speaking to the firefighter mind, I've heard people talk with friends and forums and whatever, like, we have too many chiefs. We don't need all these chiefs. And 99% of your shifts, more than that, 99.9% of your shifts, you're right. We don't need 10 battalion chiefs. But when we get the big one, all of a sudden you need 12 battalion chiefs. So you need to remember that, like, the fire department exists for when things don't go right. When things are going right, we don't need to do anything. And when we're at a fire and things go right, the 1 or 2 chiefs is probably okay. But when you have the big one, which for Asheville, this is probably the big one, or like Red Deer having one of their 10-story buildings have a fire, they're going to be overwhelmed quick. That's why you have all the chiefs. And as much as I hate to agree with Paul, if you don't have all the chiefs, your neighbors have chiefs, and they can come in.
Oh, yay!
And they can fit
Mutual
into the
aid,
plan.
automatic
Yes.
aid. Red Deer calling mutual aid? I want to see that.
That happened a couple years ago.
A similar argument is, why do you order pumpers with 6,000 liter a minute pumps when the vast majority of fires you put out with a couple 700 liter lines? You don't need the big pump. What do you need that for? Because sometimes you do. And if you don't have
That's
it,
right.
you're not going to be able to use it because you
And
don't have it.
We're talking chief level. I mean, this recommendation, and like we said, they didn't even staff their engines properly.
Right.
You should have at least 4 people on your engine. That's an officer, a driver, and 2. And the officer should be going in. Lots of fire departments, the officer stays out, and it's still only 2 going in. The officer and 2 guys from the back should be going to do the task, because the officer is the safety eyes for the company.
Yeah, and that was recommendation 12, is their staffing levels must be maintained and effectively utilized. In this incident, it says actually several engines were riding a person short, and several engineers that were not required to staff pumps weren't utilized to haul hose and do other stuff. So staffing, because command was too busy trying to keep the eggs in the basket. He didn't even see that there was some people standing around he could have had to use, right? Recommendation 13. This one kills me.
If you don't have an adequate incident management team, then the guys on the trucks are going to have to backfill some of those jobs that are essential. And you don't have enough guys on the trucks, and you don't have enough trucks. Well, how are you going to have a good outcome? It's going to be difficult.
Paul wants to use the captains here to do chief level stuff, but their staffing model makes the captains do firefighter level stuff.
I mean, I'm okay. Captains.
I'm just saying.
Captains should have incident command training.
Exactly right, Doug. Exactly right.
They should have incident command training, because they do incident command on
and they can be a division supervisor.
Incidents. But then
what Doug is saying is if you don't have enough crew, then the captain has to be hands-on firefighting.
Right.
Because he can't just be a captain; he's got to be a working firefighting
he's hauling
captain.
hose, yeah.
And we know that doesn't work very well.
On the thing that what Paul's talking about, where I disagree, is, so if you're saying Engine 2's captain is in charge of the fire floor, what are Engine 2's firefighters doing?
Well, if there's only one other one, that's the problem.
Even if there's 2 of them, if they're doing a job, they need their captain with them. And if he's doing a different job,
the captain can supervise a couple of crews on that area.
Then what's their?
But it'd be better. It'd be better if you didn't do that.
This is a mountain molehill that I want to die on, because the captain should be with his company, not supervising other companies.
I agree that it'd be better to have a separate supervisor for both those companies. Okay?
It's just like the way the fire department is laid out. You don't have a captain in charge of the battalion. You have a captain in charge of the company. The battalion chief is in charge of the battalion. You take that same mindset into the fire building.
Okay. Let's move on.
Number 13 doesn't matter because everybody uses ticks now. I don't think this is a...
This is 2011. They had ticks.
Well,
it says here.
I mean, sure, yeah.
They
if
should
you
have
have
used
it, use
ticks.
it.
At this incident, the fire department had thermal imaging cameras on all truck companies and heavy rescue company, but they were not utilized in the building. The engine companies did not have thermal imaging cameras, and they were operating in blinding conditions on the fire floor. What's with that? That's crazy.
And 2011 is mighty late in the game.
Well, the captain can't carry the tick. He's carrying the hose instead, or the clipboard.
We had them in the 90s.
Yeah, Lacombe had thermal imaging cameras pre-2000. So come on. And then, of course,
they all shut off at Y2K, but you know.
Yeah.
Lacombe probably had one, and they had you and Redbeard down the road. Like Lacombe's a little different.
We're special. Recommendation 14, fire department should ensure that respiratory protection program includes consideration for using larger volume SCBA cylinders in target areas such as big buildings, right? So in this incident, the fire department only had, they had 4,500. This is the thing that bugs me. They had 4,500 PSI cylinders, but they went with the small cylinder because it's light. They didn't go for the hour or the 45-minute. They went for the 30-minute cylinder. I mean, you're already at high pressure. What, to make it lighter? Really?
Yeah, you can get pushback from the guys on how much weight they're carrying and complaints about stuff like that. And you got to have a more fulsome discussion when it comes to making decisions like that.
I wonder if they changed after. And then, of course, 15 just says you should have sprinklers in buildings, which we know already. Great discussion, everyone. Hopefully the fans will appreciate it. Everybody loves it when Doug's on because him and I get going at it a little bit.
I hold your feet to the fire instead of just letting you go with your nonsense.
Ooh. I'm glad you could all.
I like the crows as well, Paul.
Yeah, the
crows were good.
I'm sitting in the campground here. I'm looking out the trees. There's some kids playing over there in the grass in the meadow.
I'm staring at my pillow. This is a late night recording.
Okay.
You were tired. You have all morning to sleep in.
Yeah, I was up bright and early for reasons today.
I was up bright and early because I had kids in my bed at 6:00 this morning.
Oh, yeah. Well, enjoy it.
Yeah. Well, you're only half my age, Doug, so you should be bouncing right back from that.
All right. Well, that was a good one. I feel bad for these fire departments that are understaffed, company level and chief level, and because I can picture, like you said in the meeting with council, when you say, I want my fourth firefighter because the studies show I can rescue somebody faster, and the bean counter goes, well, how often do you even rescue anybody? Well, I want an air truck for my high-rise. Well, how often do you have a high-rise fire? Like, admin is way more...
Yeah, mention out to...
Yes.
More to take the risk, right?
But a mention out...
Council...
Terrace BC right now is fighting this fight with their council, trying to get, I think, 3 or 4 people on an engine. And it's been all over Facebook, and they're putting all kinds of studies. And come on, you guys, we need 4 people. And you and I both know they need 4 people, but you got to convince council.
But goodness sakes, use the resources you have.
Yeah.
I mean, if you got 12 stations and 12 engines, and that's what you think you need at the fire, send them all.
I agree.
And council will pretty soon get the message that that's what you need.
Especially if you're if you only got 3 on the truck, send more trucks. I mean, they're still coming from far away, but yeah.
I mean, if you're constantly managing with baling wire and 50-mile-an-hour tape, duct tape to keep your fire department together, nobody knows that. And then when the wheels fall off the wagon, everybody goes, well, it's your fault. Yeah, it is for hiding the truth. I mean, get it out there.
Never mind Terrace, BC. Calgary just got 4. They're not even done filling the seats yet. They just got approval.
No, they're trying to get 4 per aerial,
4 on the ladders. Yeah,
on the trucks. Yeah,
and that's a major city. That's a 2 million people city almost.
Yep, biggest city.
But when you have a major incident like this, Doug, don't keep holding back companies because you might get something else. No, you are going to get something else, but send them, and depend on your partners to cover off.
Yeah, or call guys in on, like, you need, the point here is you need the stuff figured out before the fire happens. If you're the fire chief,
Yeah.
you need the
Yeah.
aid agreements, you need the station coverage agreements, or you need the call guys in that are off duty to man reserve trucks in your station agreements.
Yeah. Oh, we can't have the overtime. I hear it now.
Yeah.
I mean, that
Well,
was the same
agree.
thing in my
Yeah.
city. My city that I'm in right now, the union's been pushing for years. You have these major incidents and you never do callback. And I'm saying to myself, are you kidding? My station is empty for hours because they're downtown. I said, seriously? Why isn't there somebody back in the station? You decided you wanted to staff it full time, but yet it's really only staffed when there's nothing going on.
All right.
Be safe.
Rant's over.
Good night, everybody. Thank you very much, everybody, for listening to another emergency traffic podcast. We hope you continue to find them informative and interesting. Please tell a friend and hit that button to subscribe to our little podcast. We really appreciate the feedback if you have any, and thanks for listening.
And follow us on our social media so Paul can do all the fancy things he wants to do.
Facebook and Instagram and
you
Twitter
can watch him
what have you,
pumping at Vermilion all day long.
There you go.
And YouTube.
Okay.
YouTube.
And YouTube.
All right.
YouTube. That's
YouTube.
right. YouTube. Our YouTube's growing. Yeah.